All right, peace and love, family. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, please like and subscribe. And I am your host, Queen Tamara. And tonight we have our beloved resident doctor, therapist, Dr. Dennis Ausar Winkler with us. And we are talking about a very, very important topic that is close to my heart and many others people's hearts this time of year. This is a wonderful time of year for some people, and it can also not be so wonderful for some of us. And this holiday season is a time of year where there's a lot of holidays coming up across many different faiths. We have Christmas coming, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, the New Year celebrations. Thanksgiving is tomorrow for those who celebrate that. And there's some other holidays that are celebrated this time of year, the winter solstice, and some others, just to name a few. And with that, this time of year, there's going to be a lot of gatherings, and it can cause some people anxiety and depression. And a lot of people tell me that they're very unhappy this time of year. They dread the holidays because of their situation with relatives and family members, or and not having the best relationship or the ideal relationship with them, or not being able to have a pleasant holiday experience because of toxic relatives, or anger and resentment and things like that that are going on in the family. And that can cause some people to have a lot of stress and anxiety. And some people do not have relatives and family to
Mhm.
spend the holidays with. And that can also cause them to feel unhappy and down this time of year, feel a little bluesy because they see other people celebrating with loved ones or traveling to be with loved ones, and then they may find themselves alone or not having anybody to bond with. And so we're going to be talking about that tonight. We're going to be talking about coping with toxic relatives during the holidays, or how to have a pleasant holiday if you choose not to be around them, or if you are alone. So first, I'm going to let my beloved guest, Dr. Winkler, introduce himself and talk a little bit about what he does. You want to share with the audience? It's been a few episodes since you've been with us, so for the new people, if you'd like to tell us about yourself.
Okay. Greetings. Thank you, Queen Tamara, for having me again. It's a pleasure. I am probably the worst person to explain myself, to be honest. But I'll say that I am a psychotherapist, full-time faculty member, assistant professor at Waynesburg University. I am the founder of TNAT Holistic Wellness Center, where we offer uh, mental health or just holistic wellness, and which also includes mental health services. We have a shop that has everything from herbs to cultural accoutrements, or relics and masks and different things like that, artwork. We have a restaurant that's coming in the process. It's slowly coming, but is arriving. We offer different nutritional supplements, um, books. We have a place where people can come and uh, just chill, vibe. We have other clinicians, and we offer men's and women groups with facilitators, and we look to offer many more things. We have Tai Chi, martial arts, but it's a plethora of things that we do
Mhm.
offer to kind of deal with the mind, body, and spirit.
Oh, give thanks for that. Yes. And so this time of year, like I said, is a time for a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression and bluesiness for many people. Um, let's discuss that, and why. Do you see a lot of that in your practice?
Well, both ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do see what you're speaking to quite a bit though. I've been seeing that for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so again just kind of veggie backing on what you said earlier around um, people not for various different reasons, such as people not having family, pretty much a lot of people dealing with loss.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons. Another is I've often seen is just the traumatic situations that people have to deal with. Well, they choose to deal with because it's difficult not to go around your family. Then maybe one family member may be there who may have molested somebody, and now I
Mm-hmm.
want to be in the same room with this individual, or I've never really my mother doesn't think that I'm an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and she treats me like a child, and I want to stand up for myself. So to some degree, when we have these authoritative parents, sometimes it creates a certain level of skill set in us that's kind of passive in a sense, and sometimes we feel walked on, trampled over, and not respected. So yeah, I don't, but nonetheless, I do experience that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in my practice.
Okay. And for those who are spending the time alone, what advice do you, or if they choose, let's say, if they choose to be around their family and have a family gathering, what advice would you give them?
Okay, so you said those who are
Yeah,
who choose to.
those who choose to do the family thing and be with their family for the holidays.
Oh, okay. Well, I think okay. So I guess it kind of depends. So this question will be those who are dealing with what they call toxic
Toxic relatives, right?
relatives. Okay. So some things I think we can do, and it's like the number one thing that we often hear in counseling, which has probably become cliche at some time, is this fancy word called creating boundaries.
Yes, I love it.
You say you love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sometimes we just don't know how to do that or what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So some examples is okay, if you're going to spend some time at your family's house this year, well, maybe one boundary could be if you're going to go, maybe a certain amount of time you spend there, or if certain types of conversations come up, you may
Mm-hmm.
just find ways to maybe not be in those conversations, maybe spend time with people you're comfortable with in the house, or if
Mm-hmm.
if it's that time to really step up and say, I really don't appreciate, I don't really express your feelings about it.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of depends on where the person is. Another way, you say if they choose, because some people you can just choose not to go. But what I
Right.
realize
Yeah,
is,
I was gonna talk about that next. Yeah, but if you do choose to go, like I like what you mentioned about the boundary setting part,
Mhm,
and that's very important. I had to learn how to set boundaries when I became an adult with relatives because a lot of times they don't respect boundaries or feel that they can talk to or treat you any kind of way, especially if
mhm,
they've been accustomed to that.
mhm,
And
mhm,
then when you get older, they think that it's still okay. And you do have to set boundaries.
mhm,
And what about the people who have relatives um who won't allow you to set boundaries, like they want to infringe on your boundaries and your space or cause confuse. Like I saw a funny short video, I think it was on YouTube the other day, and it was about you know that that aunt at the family gathering. So I guess at Thanksgiving, so they were showing someone at a house, and this aunt comes over and starts, saying things to them that was totally unacceptable. But it was a comedy. And then the aunt was telling them, oh, look at you, you've gotten so fat and you still don't have a boyfriend and you this, and they made a joke about it.
mhm.
But, and then the person told them, well, I'm auntie, I'm minding my business, and I'm setting boundaries. And the aunt just kept going on, and it was like, but this is supposed to be a family gathering.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I would like to get that if you get the chance to send it to me.
I would.
That would be beautiful. I might use it for some educational purposes.
Okay.
What I would say is, so setting boundaries is important, right? But I
Mhm.
think it's also acceptance is also important, right?
Mhm.
And what I mean by acceptance is, I mean, this is not popular, but if you it's we choose often, if we're going to choose to go, we have to also understand we can't control people
Mhm.
who are going to do what they do. But if we decide to go, we have to learn to accept people for where they are. We can tell people, hold up now. Now they don't have to back down. Like for example, Auntie, please don't do that. She like, girl, shut up, go ahead. But if
Yes.
you know that that's a possibility, um, you have to realize what your threshold or your tolerance level is.
Mhm.
Because lots of us just refuse not to go to these things. So I
Yes.
think to some degree, if we can have compassion and empathy, we can even empathize with certain individuals because this is their personality. Even
Mhm.
sometimes because we've been in what we call toxic or
Mhm.
relationships or families or familial situations, we become kind of hypersensitive.
Mhm.
Auntie may not be thinking she's doing as much harm as she is. Now, Auntie, if I was talking to Auntie, I would say, Auntie, check this out. I think you may be stepping on her toes. You may making her feel uncomfortable. But if I'm working with the other person, I'll be like, well, I don't know. What do you think Auntie is really trying to hurt you? Is this part of her cultural norm? Is all these type of things that get a person to see that it may or may not be that toxic. I mean, it's really trauma has to do with the way that you perceive things.
Okay.
Like somebody can come to me and call me stupid all day, right? I'm just saying, and I may not feel triggered by that, or it
Mhm.
may not bring up because maybe somebody never called me stupid when I was young, or maybe somebody did. But everybody deals with stuff differently. But really, I think the goal is to help the client deal with capacity building, if that's such a thing. If I can say that,
Mhm.
capacity building, your ability to withstand some of these nuances, right?
Mhm.
And with or some of what you see as aggression or what have you. And I'll give you an example. One of my clients came in. He's from the United States. He's a black
Okay.
brother, and he has a wife that's from the Caribbean. My wife's probably going to get me. She's from the Caribbean. But what happens is in his wife's family, they're
Mhm.
pretty they're pretty aggressive, and Caribbeans are very verbose with their language, and they kind of colorful.
Yes.
you know, and African Americans are too, and so on and so forth. But Caribbeans are really, my wife is looking at me, but nonetheless, they all right, look at you. What's going on with you? You're a fool. What's going on? And to
Mhm.
somebody, you might be like, why is he calling me a fool? Why is he yelling? Why is he doing this? And why, so sometimes it takes some cultural training. Now, I'm not saying this is the case that you're speaking to right here, but I know people I work with who have married into different cultures. And lots of times,
Yes.
even if it's not Caribbean culture, let's say it's somebody from a Muslim background and somebody from a maybe say non-religious background, or let's say somebody's family is just a little bit more. My family's from Virginia. They loud. I'm just gonna tell you,
Mhm.
very loud. They're just loud. Hey, how you doing? What's going on, man? Hey, so
Yeah, I'm from Virginia too.
yeah, so it can feel very intense. Like if you're like
Mhm.
from Baltimore, people in Baltimore tend to be more like they've been on defense for so long. I don't want to throw out any generalizations, but
Kind
people,
of, kind of late, a little reserved. It's a different kind of reserved. Be more
yeah,
people. Yeah.
yeah. So you see what I'm saying. So people from
Mhm.
Baltimore, that's probably like, yo, chill out.
Mhm.
You might get killed, for real, because you might get killed acting like that. So it's a so, but people are different. They come
Mhm.
from different backgrounds. They come from different. They have different experiences. But the thing is, we want people to be like us. So just help the client have some understanding on how sometimes it's cultural versus somebody really trying to hurt you.
Mhm.
So it just depends. It's very complex.
Mhm.
Every situation is different. Not
Mhm.
every situation, but there's different reasons why people may or may not call you. Hey, girl, look at you fat. Like Caribbean people, they always tell me, look at you. I went to Jamaica. And I didn't even know I had gained so much weight. I did, like I was like in my master's program,
Uh-huh.
and my wife's aunties was like, Dennis, you're fat man. What? Look at you. You're bigger than Ron. Talking about my another guy that was with me. He was like, you're bigger than Ron. And the reality is I didn't even know I was bigger than Ron.
Mm-hmm.
but they gave me some
But they let you know.
yeah, they let me know that I'm
Mhm.
bigger than Ron or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they didn't mean any harm. But if somebody who is not used to that background or that
Mm-hmm.
era or what have you, they will be very it'll be triggering that trauma.
It'd be triggering and traumatized. Yes, that's what we talk about because for some reason, relatives feel that it's okay for them to say and do certain things.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they are usually the people who test boundaries and violate boundaries the most because strangers would not tell you that. They would not walk up to you and tell you, "Oh, you what's wrong with you? Why you getting fat or why you getting skinny or why are you still single?" The strangers probably would not say that, or people you work with may not, but relatives feel completely comfortable saying and doing things. And then also,
Hmm.
um some of the stories I've heard and some of the things I've witnessed when there's gatherings, relatives will be the ones that will come over and actually violate family member space. Like they'll be invited to something and they'll bring people with them and nobody brought a dish to share, but they're taking stuff home. I mean, people said that family members will come to their house when they invite them to stuff, and they'll come with like Tupperware dishes and like what? But they didn't bring anything, but they're taking stuff out. Relatives do
Probably that one
things
though,
like
right? It's not like the whole. It's like the one auntie or the cousin with that. That's the daughter of the auntie. But I'm not assuming this is the norm, right? For the whole family, like you all.
I'm not sure, but it happens, and I've seen it. I've been invited to events, and I've seen it, and people have complained about it. Like they'd be like, "Oh
Yeah.
goodness, is Thanksgiving coming? I don't want to go to so and so house because aunt, it's all we gonna blame it on aunt. It's always on so and so. She doesn't
Yeah.
know how to act. She's always
Mm.
starting arguments. She always drinks too much at all this kind of stuff, and it's like it is supposed to be a festive, happy time of year, but for a lot of people, it's stressful because of the people not respecting boundaries or
Yeah.
just a lack of respect in general.
I think it goes both ways though, right?
Okay.
So I think if we high and mighty, that we need to have some capacity building. Like, like I'm Dr. Dennis Winkler, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I can go into a place. I don't do lots of things, right? I
Hmm.
don't. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't cheat on my wife. I don't do none of that.
Okay.
Does that mean that everybody around me is going to also practice those same behaviors? No.
No.
And so I do understand that. Another thing is, yeah, like, but I do I don't, I'm not gonna be around a group of people in that party that's probably smoking herb,
Hmm.
right? I probably can't avoid the drinking if I'm gonna go to one of those parties. But again, I can also choose the amount of time that I go to these places. I can't change people,
Hmm.
but I do love my family, right? So
Hmm.
I have to now learn, I have to have dosages that I can withstand.
Hmm.
What we typically do, and this might go to your next question, and maybe you can pull me back, but we typically do, we play this dance called I'm not dealing with them. So we put these walls up. And then after 3 months or a year and a half or two, we start to get lonely. Or we see them at the bus stop. And then we have a good conversation. Oh, you know what, Joan? I miss you, Joan. And then we back on it popping. We back in each other's lives without any boundaries again. Next thing
Hmm.
you know, Joan is taking a shot at me. At least I feel like she is, because I just went in, didn't set any expectations, any boundaries, didn't deal with the unresolved things. And Joan is going to do the same thing because Joan and us never had the conversation that we have had. That's the unresolved problem or trauma. See, Joan doing it again. You never even talked to Joan about it. Typically, when
Hmm.
you're dealing with these aggressive personalities, we've been very passive,
Hmm.
as you said. So many times we haven't even spoken our voice, and to a great degree. And if we did, sometimes we do it in the heat of the fire because we've been
Hmm.
so passive so long that the only time we can say anything is when we're so angry and we get punch drunk off of it and get this we feel real strong, and when we angry, and then we say, Joan, F you, Joan, just F you, and we think you should never do that, Joan. And this is how we do it. And you know what? Shove it and do this, and you hurt my feelings all the time. And
Mhm.
nobody really, that's not really a good conversation. That's not setting boundaries. No one's going to learn from that. All Joan is going to do is get upset at you and think that you're the problem. See, she's high and mighty. See, she done went out there and got her a degree, or she got her a husband, or now she act like she ain't from around the way anymore, or
Right.
she's bigger than, she's better than this family. So what happens is no, 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 everybody's thinking, nobody's able to really see each other, what everybody, what the person is asking for, or what other, each other needs are, because we've been, one has kept it in. So okay, let me do this.
Mhm.
Those who are very passive, I do challenge them. I'm sorry. Or
Mhm.
those who are very who become triggered very easily, because I get it, but at the same time, if you want to be around your family, we have to learn. We have to, again, capacity build, and
Mhm.
we have to learn how much dosage of my family I can get, and we have to stop playing that game that we're going to leave them alone and move to another state. I can say this right now, but because I'm not with a client, but maybe and I'm going to move to another state, and I'm going to go
Right.
to this state. I'm leaving my family behind. I'm going to Wichita. I'm going to Atlanta. I'm going up to such and such and start my
Mhm.
whole new life over again. And then
Mhm.
you 3 months later, you missing everybody, and then you're back here again, and nothing's resolved.
Right.
Or you go there, and then you got a whole new problem with a whole new man or woman, a relationship you created, and now they stepping on you, because we haven't learned to set boundaries, speak up for ourselves, and then we start feeling disrespected, and then we just create a new process, and new people that we feel disrespected by.
Mhm. Well, another thing is when it comes to, like you said, boundaries, a lot of us, our family members, um, won't, or the relatives, I should say, will not respect your rules.
Hmm.
Like that's one of the things that, you may have certain house rules, and your guests will respect them, but the relatives will not. And
Okay.
that can cause a lot of conflict and confusion. And um I'm gonna just go out there and say that sometimes relatives will manipulate you. Like if you say, I'm cutting them off, I'm not dealing with them, I'm not going to the gathering this year because they always have an argument, or they won't handle the alcohol and they get out of control, or something gonna happen again, I'm gonna have to get another restraining order, whatever. And then you let somebody emotionally manipulate you. What do you mean, Asar, you not coming to, Thanksgiving? This has been a long family tradition for years. Of course you're gonna come. Or what are they gonna think if you don't show? They're gonna think you don't like that, or you can't you just let that go, what happened? Or you gonna just hurt my heart if you don't go, all whatever. And then you end up going and wishing you hadn't.
Well, you didn't set a strong boundary. You went. Again, it goes back to, people are going to play. In fact, people really do want you there. They just don't know how to do no better lots of times. They want
Okay.
you there. Like they can be toxic all get out. That don't mean they really don't want you there. That don't mean they don't hurt. That don't mean they don't desire your attention, and
Mhm.
because you feel in this little spot. And it doesn't mean they don't want to beat you up when they get there. But what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, we have, if we know that this is going to happen, then we have to say, I'm not going, and we have to stand by our boundary. And lots of times, the reason why we don't keep boundaries, because we don't want people to look at us a certain way. That is your work that you need to do. One,
Mhm.
not you, Sister Tamara, but
Mhm.
but the work of that person who has to keep his or her boundary, saying, I'm not going this year.
Mhm.
And if I do go, maybe I'll stop by for 15 minutes. Maybe I'll
Mhm.
stop by for half an hour. Or maybe I'll go in 6 to 8. But I know those start acting real funny around 9 and 10 o'clock.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
gonna get up out of Dodge. You
Right.
understand? So I'm not I'm not convinced that these strong boundaries are sustainable, but I do know that they're needed at
Yes.
times. So I'm not the person that think that putting walls up really work, because then you really feel enslaved, you feel imprisoned, you feel separated, you feel isolated. Sometimes you need those, but very rarely do you need to really separate yourself completely. Many times we rather separate ourselves completely because we have not yet found a way to talk to other people or to confront people in a very substantial way or very assertive manner to say, no, I really don't like that. No, please don't do that. I love you, but no, I don't do that. Not no more. Not today. Like, we don't want to do that because we don't want to upset them. We don't want to upset them, so we go. We don't want to tell them not to do that because we don't want to upset them. Many times people who've been through these things and these traumatic cycles, what happens is we become so passive or people pleasing that we don't want to shake nobody. But we have to look and see if they look. The best test is to see if you tell them no, if they're gonna still be there for you. If you tell them no enough, or you tell them don't do that strong enough, and that'd be a good boundary, because they may lead you on for the rest of their life and show you that what, they wasn't ready, and maybe so that maybe their intentions weren't all good and things of that nature. But yeah, we have to set boundaries. I always take it back to the person. I always take it back to the person, because the family member is not typically the person that is not that's in the room. It's typically the person who's struggling with setting boundaries, or even if they are in the room, they're not having these problems, so they don't talk about it that way. You understand? So a person who may be running people over, I might be like, hold up, you want to know why people mad at you, or why people be hiding from you and stuff, is because you might be a little too aggressive. You want to know why people keep shutting the door on you, or why people, because the person, that other auntie, believe me, I have both of these people on the couch. You see what I'm saying? Auntie who's very aggressive and obnoxious, or whatever you call it, she's on the couch and trying to figure out what's wrong.
Oh, really? Okay.
Auntie's on the couch too, because the problem is these two personalities are created from toxic or traumatic type of, or early childhood trauma, or adverse, they use adverse childhood experiences, right? Because auntie, like for example, if you have a very cut off mother, many times, or father, or attachment figure, what happens is you may become pretty much a person that's cut off yourself. You may, but if you have a person that's extra aggressive, you may also become cut off. But if you got a person that's sometimes aggressive, sometimes loving, and you just mixed up, you might just be ambivalent or confused, and sometimes you're aggressive, and or if you just have a person that it's different. It creates different types of personality or attachment styles, where now you're anxious because you're anxious. You want, sometimes, let's say a person who parents showed them some attention, but they never did good enough. Lots of times people have what you more like anxiety or social anxiety or perfectionism type of traits, where they're anxious. They want approval. So all these people, from my standpoint, the aggressive ones, the passive ones, the anxious ones, are all an all a result of these early childhood experiences. They just manifest in different ways. So everybody's struggling, even aggressive auntie.
She's struggling too, so she's dealing with some kind of insecurities or something like that, and this
Lots
is why.
of times that aggressive auntie is the one who said, I never got to say what I had to say when I couldn't say anything when I was little. My mother told me shut up and stay in my place. I never could do this when I never could voice my opinion. Now I'm going to voice my opinion. Now I'm going to speak up for me. I'm going to speak up for my children. I hate you, mom. I hate you, dad. Look, because I never could say it. So you're not going to shut me up. You're not going to shut me up.
Right.
So it creates these type of personalities.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yes. I've met that aggressive person many times that um just feel, I guess they've, at some point in their lives, their boundaries were not honored, or they felt a sense maybe they were abandoned or something. So now they, how they cope with that hurt, or other I don't know what creates it, but they become this overbearing um person, like you said, overly aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now what about dealing with, I guess, grief during this time of year, because some people are spending the holiday season solo because they've actually had a loss. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not the toxic family, it's the opposite. It's just there is no family. Maybe they not only grieving, there's many different situations. Sometimes it could be the person grew up in foster care, or they grew up estranged from their family, and so they may have been exiled or whatever, or had to exile themselves, and so they're alone this time of year, and so they're not finding comfort in, or they may not have friends either, because some people who don't spend time with the relatives, you can suggest them to them. Well, what about your friends, or the friends that become like a family? Can you spend time with them? And some people don't have that either,
Mm-hmm.
or they're introverted, or they don't want to share with others what they're going through, but they are alone. So what suggestions do you have for them?
Well, I think we still have to tie that back, right?
Okay.
So if you don't, okay, so if you don't have family for whatever reason, if it's not just death, right?
Mhm.
You came from a two-parent household, something happened to your mother and father, and you had no cousins, right? I get that, but that's not the typical case. The
Mhm.
typical case is more like I just don't deal with my family. So it's
Yeah.
more of what we spoke about earlier.
Yes.
And they all did something bad to me.
Mhm.
Um, which could be true to a degree.
Mhm.
I find that lots of that there's some truth to it, but there's also some things we've created in our
Mhm.
minds because that's what trauma does, and especially if it happened
Mhm.
at an early age. So now, okay, so all right, let's say your family really is horrible. Let's say that.
Okay.
And now, why don't you have any friends? So that's the next thing. So how about before we get here to these holiday times, let's improve your social circle.
Mhm.
And the issue is typically when a person is alone like this, they fall into a victim type of mindset.
Mhm.
And it becomes real difficult to kind of tease out what is real, what is not real. But the reality is we don't have to even do that. It's just you'll see them manifest in their new relationships and how difficult it is for them to stay in new relationships because everything starts out kind of perfect, and then this person becomes the devil. It's called idolation. You idealize this people when you first get in relationship with them, your friends, your romantic partner, or what have
Mhm.
you. And then after some point, you begin to I forgot what the other term is right now, but you you you
Mhm.
you idealize them, and then at some point you kind of despise them. I'm just use that at some point,
Okay.
and then these people can't do anything right,
Mhm.
and so hence, and anything outside of your strong black and white mentality of what is right and wrong, and typically that's what people have this black and white thinking, and so they don't have any friends. So one of the things is help you build your social network.
Mhm.
That's a strong, and that's a serious thing to do is to build up your social network because there's billions, millions, and billions of people out here. Of course, you might not come across a billion people, but there's lots of people out here.
Mhm.
So if your family did this to you, now what about dealing with other people? If
Right.
so, because at this point, it must be something going on within you that's preventing you from creating a family. Because
Well, some of the people who have experienced a lot of childhood trauma or adverse family
uh-huh,
situations,
uh-huh,
there's the trust issues, and if you've been abused or neglect or neglected,
uh-huh,
um, it's hard to establish healthy boundaries or trust with other people. So
uh-huh,
there are some people. I used to work at a school for children who were had multiple emotionally disturbed, multiple disabilities, and a lot of them were had difficulty having relate interpersonal relationships with people and communicate with people. And some of them had grown up in child what is it
Foster homes.
foster homes, group homes, were being raised by other family members, and just different situations. And that has a big effect on how you interact with other people.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And again, though, that's still work that you have to do or they have to do on themselves
Hmm.
because you can't control what happened to you per se,
Hmm.
but you can change your trajectory. And again, that goes back to a victim type of mindset that now is that one develops because the trust issue creates distrust for people. That's the theme. You don't trust people, so you don't really get in these relationships. And then if you do get in these relationships, you get so worried that these people are not going to really do you well. So you kind of self sabotage that relationship before it can even settle.
Hmm.
If somebody gets too close, you feel like they're getting too close, then you start to see things that's probably not really happening. Why didn't they call me yesterday or this? But nonetheless, not to get too caught up on that, I just want to know. But if a person is by themselves and they are so isolated, one, that can deal with trauma. Two, it can be depression, right?
Hmm.
So so one, that trauma, we got to deal with that unresolved trauma and how it has affected or impacted our worldview of the world being an unsafe place. And they are unsafe aspects of the world, but we have to now learn to differentiate between what is uh, threatening and what is not
Hmm.
when somebody is dealing with these attachment issues, these abandonment issues, these rejection issues. And you see this a lot in our community. And that's why I'm really speaking to that. Number two, we dealing with this depression because they might have lost loved ones around this time of year. And even
Hmm.
if they didn't lose loved ones around this time of year, they may have lost a loved one in the summer. But the
Right.
reality
And
is
this, right.
this will be the first time or the second time, or they're just not with them any longer.
Right.
So hence we look backwards and we look at it in a way that say this person's not here with me.
Hmm.
And so now we have to deal with some existential things and and that being death. And also, if okay, so if you said they're isolating,
Hmm.
the number one thing that I would try to get them to do, other than build their social network, is also something we call behavioral activation. Because isolation doesn't do a good job for depression long term. It creates and the depression just deepens. it
Yes.
it it cycles down or spirals down into deeper levels of depression. So behavioral activations define activities, although you may or may not want to do them. More than likely, you don't want to do them. More than likely, you want to go in the house, you want to shut the blinds, you want to turn the TV off or on, you want to stay in the bed, you don't want to get up, you may not want to take a shower, you might let's do something. So, all right. So, instead of staying in the bed, in the house, go ice skating if that's something you enjoy. You might not want to go, but when you get
Hmm.
there, you're probably going to feel really good about it. So,
Hmm.
behavioral activation is finding something that you know you like, although you don't feel like doing it, and going out there and doing it. Now, you do behavioral activation is also important that you do things that you know are more likely than not is going to be very pleasurable to you in a sense.
Hmm.
Um, so you might not want to just go somewhere where, like, to a family's house or something. You're already depressed, and this person's going to make you more depressed. But if you go somewhere where you know you really enjoy, you like going skiing, you like going hiking, you like going horseback riding, you like going to the skate park, you like going, just wherever you go, go walk in the park, go and hang with your friends that you know really, really
Right.
you trust, So do some because people want to isolate even though they have friends that they know if they got around them. For example, let's say some of our communities and things like that. Let's say some of not all religious circles are healthy, even right. Not all cultural communities are healthy either. But if you know you have one that is healthy, that once you leave, you feel loved, embraced, and you feel, you know, um, sometimes people hug, sometimes people sing together, sometimes people do these different things that will uplift your spirit. These are things that you may want to participate in. The thing is, I'm gonna close here because I'm turn it back over. Is that when we're depressed, many times we don't have the energy that makes us feel like
Mhm.
we want to do these things because
Mhm.
the sun feels like it's brighter than it needs to be. It feels too bright. People laughing, it seems like they're laughing and it's just too happy. It's just like it's so I'm in this place and I don't want to see people that's happy. I'm not happy. I don't want to see the light because I don't feel like seeing the light. But if
Mhm.
I fight past that initial contact with the light or that initial laughter, at some point, it might shake something up in me and lift my
Mhm.
spirit.
Right. And they're not ready for that, so that's why they prefer to be alone.
hmm
Okay.
And but the other part is it. See, depression is a cycle. So
Mhm.
depression is typically you hear people saying people don't care about me. No
Yes.
one loves me. No one really cares about me. No one loves me. So I'm going to stay in the house and be by myself because nobody loves me. And then after some time, a week or so will go past, you know what? People really don't love me.
Mhm.
Because and so it becomes this cyclical process that or reaffirming process because you're staying away from people. Now it's affirming your thoughts that they don't love you. And many
Mhm.
times people don't call you when you're depressed because when they call you, you like, look, nobody cares for me. You don't care for me. Nobody care for me. And then the person just gets really burdened or really tore down. And maybe they don't like to see you in that place. So it's hard for them to really deal with you when you're in that state because now it affects them. So then
Mhm.
at some point, if a person keeps calling you and you like nobody cares for me, nobody loves me, nobody cares, and they're on the phone with you. At some point, they start to feel like, "Dang, I'm talking to the person, and they're saying nobody calls them. I call them every day. Am I nobody?"
Right.
At some point, that person may not feel love, you
Mhm.
know, and then ultimately that person backs up, and then there's other people to back up just like it because they don't want to. It's a lot for them to deal with, but then that person starts to feel more depressed because people have taken a step back to give them some space or not to mess
Mhm.
up their own with their emotions or what have you.
Mhm. It's interesting. So the bottom line, I guess, to wrap this up. So if you are dealing with this, the toxicity or the absence, well, let's do the toxicity first, is making sure you set firm boundaries and stick to your boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I guess find your voice and be, feel free speaking up for yourself.
Mm-hmm. If it's safe, yes.
Safe, if it's safe, okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you are alone, you recommend finding, I guess, a support system that you could give you, I guess, give you the support that you need, and perhaps be uh that group that you're with, if if you're feeling that you're alone during this time of year and you don't have, like you said, family, or that they're feeling alone, is to have someone that they can share this with.
Yeah.
Correct.
So so in succinct, I would say fight past that urge to be alone
Fight
because
past the urge to be alone.
yeah,
Okay.
because it's like you have to do what is a skill called opposite to emotion, where you
Mm,
do different than what you feel in a sense. And
mm-hmm.
that's within reason, right? Because when
Right.
you're depressed, you're not going to feel like going anywhere. You're not going to feel like being around people. You don't want to see happy people. You don't want to look at Instagram. You don't look at people just smiling because I don't feel like I'm smiling. So you have to fight past that initial level of resistance, if I can say, or pressure that you have to go through so that you can get to the other side. Break.
Mm-hmm.
You have to break that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's easy to stay in that state of depression because we don't change. It's like I don't want to change gears. I don't want to. I don't want to go and deal with people. I don't want to go outside. It's too sunny outside. I don't want to do that. And
Right.
it hurts because it does hurt in a sense. It hurts. It's penetrating. it's penetrating. You ever been somewhere, and even if you're not really severely depressed, your mood just ain't what it is. You got
Right.
people in there and everybody happy and making noise, and you're like, please sit down. And after a while, you up in there happy with them.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, because the being in that happy atmosphere will kind of force you to think and feel different,
Hmm.
and then you don't want to be that person that can come into a room and just change everybody's mood to something negative, like the overbearing auntie we just talked about, that will show up and show out, and just can ruin a whole event. Get
She
people
can if we allow
arguing,
her.
people storming out. Yeah, huh?
She can if we allow her to.
If we allow her to.
See, I would like. See, I think we have to take some of our power back. It ain't
Hmm.
no overbearing auntie coming up in here want to mess up no whole event ever in my house unless she got a gun and she starts popping off. You know what I mean? But,
Okay.
but auntie, is everything okay? We're gonna have to deal with somebody. Gonna have to understand auntie. Auntie might be a little off.
Yeah.
We talking about traditional culture and society. Everybody is not always on. Some people, and some people might be schizophrenic. Some people might be a little auntie. If she that loud and overburdened, she has not dealt with her trauma.
Hmm.
So some empathy, some compassion, some sympathy. The problem is we find it difficult to empathize with other people because we have not dealt with our own trauma.
Hmm.
But we've been burned out by helping other people in their trauma, like some
Hmm.
clinicians, we can get burned out and we don't want to hear a thing. And that's how I even know myself. I've been a helper for a long time. You've been a helper for a long time.
Yeah.
So even me, I have a high level of compassion and empathy. So I know you have to have it as well. But at some point, we all feel like we don't get this reciprocity. But the reality is not so much about the reciprocity, it's us setting boundaries. It's about us, expecting something from people that they can't give us.
Hmm.
So we have to accept what people can give us,
Hmm.
and we have to also set our own boundaries on ourselves of what we can and what we will continue to give them.
Hmm.
Because if you're giving them and there's nothing in return, you have to now find out where you're going to put your energies. Not to say you
Right.
cut them off completely, but you do need something, some level of reciprocity and nourishment.
I agree. Yes. Yes, definitely. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing this insight, and I'm hoping our listening audience, this gives them some um, level of comfort and advice in dealing with and navigating this, because for years I've heard from so many people that this is a stressful time of year, and it can be very sad for some people depending on what their circumstances is, and we know it doesn't have to be. And because this is a time for people to come together and do more charitable deeds, which start in home, and to spend more time being in that spirit of giving and generosity, is nothing can make it worse than I won't keep saying the aunties and the uncles and the toxic sisters and brothers and the
After this,
narcissistic parents and all these people.
let me say this because
Right.
I just because I so when I work with people that I work with, their
Hmm.
auntie, if their auntie's not in the room, I can't deal with auntie again. So the goal is to help you. We have to build up our capacity.
Hmm.
Auntie don't mess my day up. We
Hmm.
allow auntie to mess my day up. You see, so we have to go back to us.
Right.
And you know that as a healer. But
Hmm.
sometimes we get lost in that, right?
Yes.
We get lost in, we'll tell other people this, but when we get lost, oh, he did this. And, auntie is auntie.
Hmm.
Auntie, the problem is you think she's not going to be. You know what I mean? So I mean, the issue is again. I know I'm not a traditional therapist, but guess what? I've walked so many people to really reintegrate into their families, to get to move past these what they harbored and expected, these expectations that they had about for their parents.
Hmm.
To reintegrate in their family in a more realistic manner, because auntie's gonna be like that until she die.
Mm.
Especially if she ain't going to therapy. And when you 67 and unless I've helped people older than that, but lots of those people ain't coming to no therapy. And they just think you just sit your little butt down. You think you got a little education. You think you know something now, and you think you know something. So shut up. And so Mr. Winkler, me, myself, Dr. Dennis Ausar Winkler. If Auntie talk like that, I get where she coming from. I respect her as an elder, and I don't take it personal
Mhm.
because that's where she is. If
Yeah.
I have a higher level of development, and if I'm in counseling, I like to tell people all the time, look, I get it. I know you don't want to hear this, but yes, why do you have to be the bigger person? Because you're here. And
Mhm.
you looking at, and if you when you know more, yes, I'm gonna say don't I ain't gonna say know better, do better. I'm gonna say when you know more, you gotta do more.
Right.
When you experience more, when you are the person that's conscious, you have the responsibility to understand those who you are deeming unconscious.
Mhm.
So even as a person who's in therapy, like mental health, and a person who many times people come for you when you've gone to school and this and that, and they feel like you're this and you're a sellout and all this old stuff.
Mhm.
But you can get all mad at that, but then you can understand that
Mm.
sometimes it's a fear there. There's something that sometimes people feel like the white man jumped in you when you're a therapist or you went to school, and it's not
Mhm.
true. But the reality is that's just the myth that's in their mind. So I understand
Mhm.
that. So the same thing with Auntie. Auntie is doing what Auntie thinks she's supposed to do.
Mhm.
Auntie think that aunts got the right to say what they want to say, and this is what aunt say, girl, you're fat. She,
Mhm.
boy, look at you, Manny. My name is Manny. Manny, you need to go ahead and do something over there, boy. I see you look like you look something like you. So all that stuff. So at the end of the day, I can't change them, but I can build my capacity to deal with my people. And I
Mm.
also know when it's time for me to go.
Right.
With love, caring, and a hug. Love you.
Yes.
You have a nice one. You know
Yep.
what? I enjoyed our time today.
Mhm. That's good. That's good. Woo, yes.
Tomorrow, so you like, okay, all right. But look, thank you for having me.
All right, Doc. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I really hope that this touches some of our listening audience and that they find um, some joy and some insight into this conversation this evening. Because I know that it's going to be some interesting day, interesting times tomorrow, and going forward for the next upcoming holidays and events that's coming up. And like you said, the person who knows better does better, and we can come together in love and unity, provided that our boundaries are being respected and established and respected, and that we find our voice, as you said, and assert ourselves a little bit more, and don't stay in an unhappy space if you're in one, and find joy, right? Find
Yeah.
your tribe, find your friends that you can hang with, and do things, like-minded people.
And behavioral activation. If you don't have anybody, go out there, go to the golf course, go to the park,
Yeah.
all those type. Find something that you can enjoy to get ourselves out of the dump.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The force is within you.
Mm-hmm.
It's always about us. Everything. When we talk about auntie, we ain't talking about auntie. We talking about us. When we talk about other people, it's always about the work that we have to do. When we look at it that way, that's when we really deal with it. And again, when we go to our family members' homes, if we learn to trust ourselves, many times we can go without because we understand my threshold is bigger. I'm not gonna go off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna go off because I understand her. I have compassion for her, have empathy for her. I understand that he or she is that way. I'm not saying somebody who's literally trying to do something to you like molestation or beat you upside your head and all these different things. That's something different.
Okay.
You remove yourself from the situation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You remove especially as an adult, you know. But if you go there and you know Uncle Leroy is there, and Uncle Leroy and did some things even to you at some point, we have to realize if we decide to go there, um, and many people have learned to forget. That this is a hard one. At least understand or forgive, or even just deal with that person in a sense, and by setting boundaries with him or her, and enjoy the rest of their family. Because I mean, this thing is very, very deep. It's very polarizing. You know, it goes deep when someone's been molested, raped,
Yes.
and maybe when people know that this has happened, and the idea that mom act like she didn't know what happened, and all this type of thing that
Yes.
happens. The reality is these things are really true. When you it's so much pressure for someone. I know I'm going to another subject, but I'm gonna cap it off. But it's so like the human mind does what it has to do to protect itself.
Yes.
So
Yes,
it
indeed.
avoids certain ideas, information. It just can't handle. And people often say, so how could she do that? Because the mind went into a certain mode of survival. So I act like I don't see that, because that will be too much for me. That will be too overwhelming for me. That will be something I can't even deal with. Some people have learned, some people have suppressed, not suppressed, but it's, these type of thoughts are repressed. Suppress mean you constantly push it down. Repress has been is so traumatic that you just split it off totally, and you don't even know it happened. So
Mm-hmm.
the mind is a very complex thing, and sometimes we make it a very simple thing, and
Mm-hmm.
hence we have these little feuds and family situations that we hold grudges and not understand that trauma affects everybody, and some do not respond to it the way that you responded to it. And possibly you may have been more resilient than others,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And that's the same thing with all types of things. People are like, I know he's stupid. How many times can you do it? No, it's probably not that he's stupid. You may have to realize you have a certain level of ability or understanding or gift. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it doesn't have to do with that. Well, I did it. Well, that don't mean that everybody else can do it the way you did it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again. And thank you for sharing this insight and this timely advice with us. And I thank and appreciate all of you in the listening audience who are watching and for um, just tuning in. And please share this video with others so that we can all have a happy, healthy, and wonderful um, relationship with one another and ourselves during this season. So we thank you again, Dr. Ausar, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
all right, peace and love, everyone.
Peace. Peace.